Here's a good question. Rick's Remakes, what's your preferred cold storage option currently? So I actually have a few of them. My main one is Cold Card. That's where I have my setup with, and I actually talked about this on the Living the Future private show the other day. I talked about the setup, and I talked about what you would do, what I would do, what I would say if somebody broke into my house and tried to get my Bitcoin. You have to play through these things in your head. You have to, because if Bitcoin does what we think it's going to do, there's going to come a day or a night where somebody's at your door and they have a gun to your head and they say, give me your Bitcoin. And you have to be prepared for what you're going to do, what you're going to say, and how you're going to manage to keep some of that Bitcoin. So, I mean, that's another selling point outside of the network and the community within the Living the Future is we do shows like that. I don't like talking about that on YouTube, mostly because it's nobody's business. The world, it's not the world's business. It's people within the community. I feel comfortable. I trust them enough to share that with them. But also, I don't want to give would-be thieves or criminals any advice on how Bitcoiners are storing it. So I don't like talking about that on the regular shows, the live shows. That's something that happens in the private shows. But in terms of the options, I would say Cold Card. I've never used Jade. I just got this baby last week. Whoa. This thing's pretty badass, actually. I'm not going to lie. I've always been a hardcore Cold Card user, but I never knew that these existed. Like, look at this thing. It's like an old Nokia phone. And I like that because if somebody broke in your house, then they'd be like, okay, why does this weirdo have a phone from the 90s? And they would just keep walking. And non-Bitcoiners would be like, oh, there's a hockey stick. I'm going to take that. Meanwhile, they blow past the mobile device here. So this one's great, actually. The Passport, I found out recently that this is actually just a fork of the Cold Card. And the reason why Cold Card actually switched from being open source to closed source is because the Foundation Passport copied the code. But this thing's pretty cool. Like I'm not gonna lie. This is I was very impressed with it. It all comes in this package. You don't have to worry about buying the device, buying the battery, buying the USB, buying the cord, buying all things differently. They put it all into one package for you. And there's adapters in here. It comes with the SD card. This thing's pretty cool. A little bit cheaper than the Cold Card too. And it also has a camera on it, which the MK4 doesn't have. So, but either way, the point here is that it doesn't matter what device you're using. It really doesn't. I would say one of those three, you're good. Avoid anything that plugs into your laptop. And the other thing there is eliminate your single point of failure. And what I mean by that is if you do have a Cold Card, if you do have a Passport, make sure that if that's all you have, that's a single point of failure for you. Understand that. Whereas if somebody stole it, if somebody broke into your house, that's the point of failure there, one point of failure. So what I would recommend, if you don't feel like setting up a multi-signature, a multi-jurisdictional setup yet, which is a little bit out there for a lot of people, but just set up a passphrase. That eliminates your single point of failure. Because if somebody did get a hold of your device, they got a hold of your private key, that's where you just keep like your little decoy balance there. So let's say you have 1 Bitcoin total. You put the majority of it hidden behind the passphrase in that wallet. And maybe you keep 5% of it in your decoy wallet, which would be the 12 words or 24 words. And then you add a passphrase on top of that. So again, the only 2 things there that I would pay attention to, I guess 3 things. Number 1, get either the Cold Card, the Blockstream Jade, or the Passport. Those are the 3 that I've heard from everybody. I've tried 2 of them, but lots of people do recommend the Blockstream Jade. So that's number 1. Number 2, make sure that you don't use anything that connects to a USB. So I guess 1 and 2 are kind of the same because I think all 3 of those are air gapped. So if your device is plugged into a USB, I would consider that Bitcoin to be gone. I really would. And if you're somebody who has your Bitcoin on a device that plugs into your laptop, do something about it. You don't have to throw out the ledger. You don't have to throw out the Trezor. Use that as your decoy. Keep that in your safe. Put the cold card or the passport somewhere else, but use your ledger or Trezor as your decoy. You'll just sleep a lot better knowing that it's never been connected to the internet. It's never been plugged into USB. Again, don't consider that lost money. You can still use those wallets as like a decoy. Pretty important stuff. Pretty important stuff.